Speaking of rivalries, the NC State-Carolina rivalry is its own thing. But it looks like we're going to continue getting our Erik Haula Carolina Hurricanes rivalry for the foreseeable future. I'm pretty sure that Haula...
Yeah, I hate that he re-signed with the Devils because I was looking forward to knowing who the Canes were going to eliminate from the playoffs next year.
Well, it'll continue to be the Devils, will it not?
Yeah, it has to be. Right?
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So there was an image making the rounds yesterday where Erik Haula was on the golf course with somebody. I don't know who the teammate is. And he tags Erik Haula, and shout out to Canes Stats on Twitter who had yanked this image. And if you look at, and he's got this bracelet on. Erik Haula's got this bracelet on. But if you zoom and enhance, like I will do here on the Twitter machines, you will see that the bracelet apparently says Canes suck. Joe, do you think that's real?
I do not.
I do not think it's real either. But that has not stopped people from going online and dunking on Erik Haula, including our friend Kane Stats Brand, by pointing out, yes, when you're 1-14 in the building since you've been shipped off. So it's funny. A lot of people have been going on about rent-free from Erik Haula to the Carolina Hurricanes. I almost feel like there's a little bit of the inverse here where there are Canes fans who clearly direct their ire towards Haula and look for reasons to not like him, including in the playoffs. Now,
yeah, it was Nashville the first year he was gone, then Boston.
Yes.
And then this year, New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's kind of remarkable if you think about it.
It is remarkable in the grand scheme of things. It really is.
There's like a Buffalo Bills vibe to that.
The funny thing is, it wasn't a good fit. That's the best thing you'll hear about Erik Haula and the Carolina Hurricanes and this whole Rod Brind'Amour culture rebrand of the Carolina Hurricanes. Haula has been viewed as the one guy who didn't get it, quote unquote. And he's a pest, and he's this focal point during the playoffs or when they play in the regular season. It's whatever. The details as to why he's not this fit for the Carolina Hurricanes, it depends on who you ask. But most people go, it was bad. It wasn't good. It didn't vibe with the room. Okay, cool. Move on. We've moved on. Much like I think
moving on.
Much like some Canes fans are going to have to move on with some of the rumors that have been making around the last couple of weeks, right? I was at a junior Canes.
This is good or bad?
No, I mean, I would say it's more of like, if it hasn't happened by now, it might not just happen.
Okay.
So, and there's multiple reasons as to why things may or may not have happened. So I was like at a junior Canes event yesterday for Jacob, and their conversation about the Canes offseason came up, right? And we've seen how many permutations of the Tony DeAngelo back to the Canes. First, it was they were going to flip him from the Philadelphia Flyers for, they're going to retain his salary. They're going to get him for a steal again. And then that went away. I mean, Adam kept talking about it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Next thing you know, I see that the Philadelphia Flyers have bought out Tony DeAngelo.
They did.
Unconditional waivers, bought him out.
Wow.
Walk away. All right. No, it's just done. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess if the Canes wanted to pick him up for another $1 million, so be it. He's there. Tony DeAngelo at this point would be a luxury for the Carolina Hurricanes. You would absolutely appreciate his offensive prowess on the power play, which is something that the Canes are lacking, but he's not necessary for what the Carolina Hurricanes
like the first time around.
No,
when they needed him to replace Dougie Hamilton.
Bingo. All right. So I find the odd obsession with Tony DeAngelo mostly an online creation where people are still trying to hash out whether it was a good or bad decision for the Carolina Hurricanes to bring on Tony DeAngelo and whether or not lightning can strike twice. You and I talked about this ad nauseum that season. It absolutely paid off. Whatever you think of Tony DeAngelo is immaterial to the point. It paid off.
Listen, we are not on the same end of the political spectrum as Tony DeAngelo.
No.
That doesn't mean you can't appreciate what he did when he's here, because he didn't say a word.
No,
when he was here.
No. Look, I said
like he didn't pop off once. He wasn't like, oh, these hicks or whatever else he might have said. I don't know.
When I was on vacation, I know that the Rod Brind'Amour Hall of Fame discussion came up again, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. And at this point, I'm very much the only reason at this point you can make the argument that Rod Brind'Amour belongs in the Hall of Fame because he's the only coach in NHL history to get any productivity out of a guy who multiple organizations have gone, hey, buddy, thanks, but out you go. He's been bought out by 2 teams. That's like an NHL record.
Not just any 2 teams.
Yeah.
The Rangers and the Phillies.
And the Flyers, right? 2 towns that should be able to deal with a guy like Tony DeAngelo.
Where he's from,
he went home,
by the way.
He went home to Philly. And yet, these organizations have said, thanks, but no thanks. So really, Rod Brind'Amour should be in the Hall of Fame because he's the only guy who's ever gotten any productivity out of Tony DeAngelo, and they might be able to do it again, which gets us to the other points of obsession this offseason in Vladimir Tarasenko, who they did not acquire at the trade deadline. The Rangers ended up getting him, and now he's looking to secure the bag. And there was a change in agents representation, which would tell you that if there was something going on with the Carolina Hurricanes, he was taking a bargain deal. He did not like that. And now they're trying to go back to the market and get a better deal. Now, I was talking to Luke DeCock about this the other day, and he makes a very excellent point. If it's about money, well, then you don't want Tarasenko at this point. You don't want him at this point because you would probably want Tarasenko when he's looking for that next contract after the trade deadline rather than somebody who has secured the bag. So he'd be a luxury at this point too, which then also gets us to the Erik Karlsson rumors. Brentford's his old teammate with the Sharks, etc. Again, I feel like that's also a bit of a luxury, but I also think it's related to Brett Pesce's contract.
Yes.
Most importantly. And then I think
Speaking of new agents,
and actually I think the most underreported story or the deal that actually makes it's more important than all these other ancillary things that are going on right now. Where's the Sebastian Aho deal? All right. When the season ended and we talked to Rod Brind'Amour and we talked to Tom Dundon specifically, or when we talked to Don Waddell, the president and general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, when the last time we talked to him was when gambling went ahead and passed through the state house and got signed into law. What have they all said?
It's going to get done.
It's July 17th.
Yeah, but July 17th.
Where are we at?
Relatively early in the actual offseason calendar, especially for something like this. I suspect this is not something you'll see announced until near opening night.
All right.
That would be my guess.
I feel like if it's an important thing for you and you have to understand what's your cap situation going to be.
Right.
Because that's the other thing that has to get knocked out. If you have moves pending, well, then you need to make the Aho deal happen now. That's why the Jordan Staal deal was important when they made that announcement. Under 35.
Different, though, because Jordan was an unrestricted free agent.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
This is a guy you have control over because of the contract. This is a guy you had a contentious negotiation with last time. Now, Tom says that's not going to be an issue. Maybe Sebastian's camp has other thoughts. It doesn't mean that contentious just means you want to get your absolute peak value. That is where Sebastian Aho is. That's the point he is at in his career. This is not a bargain deal. This is not, this is a building block of your franchise that you now need to step up and take care of, and you're going to have to pay him more. And the premise of getting the deal done this year is that you can get a better deal than you would if he hits the open market. But you have to understand that.
Yeah. I just feel like all the moves that everybody's kind of obsessing over right now online, let's get the Aho deal done first. That way you have a better idea of what your cap situation is going to look like going forward. I also think the Brett Pesce negotiations also factor into what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't love Brett Pesce's chances of being on the Carolina Hurricanes.
I'm with you on
at the start
that.
of the year.
I'm with you on that.
I think that's where Orlov's deal came in.